Good morning and welcome to our Tuesday learning. As you know, we've been reading Rashi on the third aliyah of the weekly Parsha. I've decided now that, in fact, shuls are reopening and our shul is reopened on Shabbos morning, and we can have up to 50 people, which is more than I normally get for my early morning Rashi shir, that we're going to return to having Rashi on a Shabbos morning at 8:30, and you're very welcome to join us then. However, I did not want to lose this opportunity of learning on Facebook on a Tuesday morning, which has been nicely received, and so we're going to do something different. It'll be Rashi in shul on Shabbos morning, and we're going to learn the Chinuch, Sefer HaChinuch, on a Tuesday morning here on Facebook. We learned this a few weeks ago before it was Shavuot in the coming Shabbos, and we're going to now look each week at a different mitzvah. To remind you, the Sefer HaChinuch takes all the mitzvot of the Torah and arranges them Parsha by Parsha, and then gives you some explanation and background about each mitzvah. And it's one of my favourite svarim, and I hope that we'll enjoy it together. We won't always do a parsha of a mitzvah of the week's parsha, because of course not every parsha has mitzvot. But we will have a start with a mitzvah in this week's parsha, which is Behaalotcha, and let's have a look at this mitzvah from Parshas Behaalotcha, the first one that appears in the parsha. So he says, Mitzvahs Pesach Sheni Ba'arba Asa B'Iyar. The mitzvah to bring a Pesach, a Paschal lamb, as a second opportunity so to do on the 14th day of Iyar. The Pesach, the Paschal lamb, is brought, of course, on the 14th day of Nisan, on Erev Pesach, and eaten on Seder night in biblical Talmudic times, pre-Talmudic times, before 70 CE when the temple was destroyed. But if you miss the chance for some reason, which we'll see explained, then you could bring it on the 14th day of the next month, of the month of Iyar. And the Chinuch is going to explain why that is and the details of it. So let's have a look at the Chinuch's explanation of bringing Pesach Sheni, the second chance to bring the Paschal lamb. He says this: Sheyaseh Pesach Sheni ba'arba asa b'Iyar, to bring as a second opportunity the Paschal lamb on the 14th day of Iyar. Kol mi shelo yachol asos Pesach Rishon ba'arba asa b'Nisan. Anyone who is not able to bring the Paschal lamb on the 14th day of Nisan, which is the first opportunity so to do. Kagon, for example, mechamas tuma, because they were ritually impure. For example, they came in contact with a dead body. They ended up being ritually impure, and you can't bring the Paschal lamb if you're ritually impure. Or shahaya b'derech rechoka, or you're on a distant journey. Shneimar, the verse says, B'chodesh hasheni ba'arba asa yom yasu eso. And it says on the second month of the year. Now we think often the first month of the year is Tishrei, that's when Rosh Hashanah is. But there are two ways of understanding which is the start of the year, either Tishrei or Nisan. Nisan is the first of the months, and for the second of the months is Iyar, the month that follows. So you should bring this Paschal lamb, if you didn't manage to bring it in Nisan, you should bring it instead in Iyar. V'od horunu zichron v'racha, and our rabbis further teach, the lav dafka tuma urichuk haderech levad, it's not specifically, as the verse says, impurity or being on a distant journey. Ela kosher shagag, any situation in which it wasn't your intention, but somehow happened, you couldn't bring the offering in the proper time. Or nenas, or you were prevented from doing so, you were locked up in a dungeon when you should have been bringing the Paschal lamb. Or afilu hazed, or even if you deliberately chose not to bring the Paschal lamb on the 14th day of Nisan and Erev Pesach, even if you were deliberate in so doing, velohi krib rishon markib b'sheni, for whatever reason you didn't bring the Pesach, the Paschal lamb, on Erev Pesach, you should bring it a month later on the 14th day of Iyar. He goes on, Mishar Sheh Mitzvah, what are the fundamental teachings underlying this mitzvah? And the Chinuch is going to take us in straight to theology, straight to philosophy, straight to the most important underlying principles of Judaism. He says this: Mishar Sheh Mitzvah, amongst the roots of the mitzvah of this, Lefisha Mitzvah Sa Pesach Hu Os Chazak Uvaror Lechol Ro'ei Hashemesh Bechudesh Ha'olam. The Paschal lamb is a great and clear sign to all who see the sun, everyone who's alive, about the fact that God created the world. So you might have thought that the Pesach is about God redeeming us from Egypt. God takes us out of Egypt, and that's commemorated by the Paschal lamb. So it's not true, says the Chinuch. The point of the Paschal Lamb is to tell you that God created the world. Not just He took us from Egypt, but that God created the world. Ki az be'esahi asa imanu hakel baruch hu nisim v'niflaos gedolos v'shina teva ha'olam le'enei hamim rabim. Because when God took us from Egypt, He formed miracles and signs and wonders in front of all the nations of the world. He changed nature for our sake. And therefore, it must be that God created nature. If God can change nature, it must be that God created nature. Varu kol amei haaretz ki hashgachaso v'chalto v'tachtonim. That God, it became clear to everybody in the world that God's providence and His ability is dominant over everything that happens in the world. V'az beisahi ha'eminu hakol v'aminu hakol habaim acherim. And therefore everyone at the time and everyone who came afterwards, be'emeshehu baruch hu baruch ha'olam yesh me'ayin be'es sharatza. It became clear to everybody at the time of the Exodus that because God could perform whatever miracles He wanted and change nature however He wanted, that God created the world when He wanted to do so out of nothing. V'hi ha'etz hayadua, and this was a known time. V'afalpi shebrias hayesh me'ayin hu davar nimna miderech hateva. And even though this concept of creating something from nothing is contrary to everything else we know about the way of the world, it is contrary to nature to create something from nothing, and yet God can do it. Ki kamoke nimna livkoa mitzulos yam ad avor b'tocho ad kabeit b'yabasha v'yeshuva limkomam. Similarly, it's totally against nature. You can just split a sea and lead a whole people through that sea on dry land. This is also a total reversal of nature, just as God creating the world in the first place is totally different from anything we've known in nature. And also it's against nature that a whole people can exist in the wilderness for 40 years. From bread that falls from the skies every single day. And many of the miracles that were done for us at that time. Everything which was done for us is against the normal way of the world, against the normal workings of nature. And this principle that the world is God's creation is a mighty pillar of our faith and of our Torah. Because even the early believers who weren't part of the Jewish people, who preceded the giving of the Torah, even they realized that God created the world. That was what it means to be a believer, that God created the world. And there's no need to carry on expanding this at length. Al-Kain, therefore, Hayem Eretzona Baruch Hu L'Zakos B'Mitzvah Zo Hanichbedes Kol Ish Yisrael. And therefore, God, out of His kindness, wants to give us the opportunity of meriting to believe this and to be rewarded for so doing. God says, not only did I create the world, but I want you to gain merit from believing that I created the world. I want to endow you with merit through imbibing this belief. And therefore, it's a two-stage process. God wants us to understand that He created the world in order that we should derive merit from that belief. We should be rewarded for holding that belief. The means He uses to inculcate that belief in us is the Paschal Lamb on the 14th day of Nisan Erev Pesach. And He cares so much about us, He doesn't want to miss out from that opportunity just because of some mischance when it came to Erev Pesach. And therefore He gives us a second chance. That's how much He wants to reward us and how much He wants to bring us merit. Ki im yikrehu avon she'nenas b'chad harishon lo zechar ba im ha-kodbim. Because if something happens to you, you're going to miss out on the opportunity on Erev Pesach. Yaseh osa b'chodesh Sheni. Therefore God says, I'll give you another chance. You can perform it in the second month. You can perform it in Iyar. Ulefi shehu yisod gadol b'das, because this is a great principle of our religion. Hiyeh hachiyuv gam kain afal afal ger shenisgar bein Pesach Rishon l'Sheni, and it's so important that this even falls upon a convert who converts between Pesach and the 14th day of Iyar. So he was a non-Jew on the 14th day of Nisan. He was a non-Jew on Erev Pesach. He had no obligation at all to carry out Pesach then. But if he converts, it's so important we give him the first opportunity to bring the Pesach, and that's on the 14th day of Iyar. V'chein katan shehigdil bein shnei hapsachim, and also a child who becomes bar mitzvah between the first Pesach and the second Pesach. We give them the opportunity also to bring the Paschal lamb. Shechayevin la'asos Pesach Sheni. We give them a obligation to bring it on the 14th day of Iyar, because it's so important for this young person in their Jewish growth to internalize this concept. He continues. V'noheges, and this law applies, bisman habayis, when the temple is standing, bischarim b'toras chiyuv, to males as an obligation, uvinakevos b'toras rishus, and for women if they wish to do so. So men must and women may. Shekain horunu zichron evracha, because our sages taught, shenashim shenitchu lefesach sheni mipnei tuma mipnei achad mehadvarim shezacharnu sheasias hapesach sheni lahem rishus. If a woman is prevented from bringing the Pesach first time round, when the second time comes round, she may do so if she wants to. Ratzu shachatin, ratzu ein shachatin. If she wants to, she can slaughter the Pesach, the Paschal lamb, and if she wants to, prefers not to, then she doesn't have to do so. Umi hatam hazer, ein shachatin alehem mipnei atzman b'Shabbos. And that's why, interestingly enough, that if a woman wants you to slaughter a lamb for her on her behalf on Shabbat, when normally shchita, slaughter, is not permitted, because it's only something she may do, not something she must do, you can't slaughter it for her. You can only slaughter for somebody who must bring the Pesach lamb, not for somebody who only can do so if they want to, if it is their choice. Va'ish ha'over al zeh v'hezid bitel aseh, and a man who deliberately does not bring the Pesach Sheni has negated one of the commandments. If he was prevented from doing so, and it wasn't his fault the first time round on the 14th day of Nisan, and then he deliberately doesn't do so on the 14th day of Iyar, chayv kares, he is liable for a spiritual excision. We don't know really what kares is. It's some sort of heavenly spiritual punishment. So if you, it wasn't your fault you didn't bring it on Erev Pesach, but you then deliberately didn't bring it on the second opportunity, then you get kares, then you get this very, very serious punishment. Zohi das Rabbi b'Mishnah. This is the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, Rabbi Judah the Prince, who's the author, the editor really, of the Mishnah, compiled in 200 CE, the basic collection of rabbinic law. Avo Rabbi Nas and Rabbi Chanina, but two other sages, Rabbi Kiva, three other sages, Potrin also minakares, mikevan shelo hazed berishon. They actually say you're not liable to get kares. Why? Because you didn't fail to perform the first Pesach, the first bringing the Paschal lamb, deliberately. The first time wasn't your fault, and so it was your fault the second time, but that's not enough to get you this kares, this spiritual excision. Ve'ein tzarech lamar she'im hazed bitul rishon, bitul gam hasheni, gam bezadon, gam bim b'shaga, shechayev kares l'dvrei hakol. But everyone agrees that if you deliberately didn't bring the Pesach twice, you deliberately didn't bring it the first time, and then you either deliberately or through somewhat culpable oversight didn't bring it the second time, then you do get kares. Mikaven she'ezeded lo v'hikriv karban Hashem b'ma'ada, because you deliberately failed to bring sacrifice at the proper time. V'zosi achas mishtei mitzvos aseh shebetorah she's chayvim aleihem kares. And importantly, there are only two mitzvot in which you are liable to have kares, the spiritual cutting off, if you fail to carry them out. It's very rare. Normally you get kares if you do something wrong. This is failing to do something which you should do, failing to perform something positive. It only applies to two mitzvot. Pesach Sheni is one, and the other one is Kamosha Amu Beseda Bo El Paro. He doesn't tell you, but I'll tell you. The other one is Mila. The other one is circumcision. If you don't perform a circumcision, which is a positive act, not just withholding something from something which you're forbidden to do, then you get kares for that. You get spiritual excision for not having a circumcision and for not bringing the Paschal lamb when the temple is standing. The reason for these two mitzvot to have this commonality of having a spiritual cutting off as the punishment is because they're both covenantal. We have a circumcision as a sign of the covenant, and we bring the Paschal lamb as a sign of the covenant, and therefore they each get the same punishment. Everyone have a good day and a good week, and we'll carry on with our chinuch learning next Tuesday morning. All the best.